On December the 5th, 1872, sailors on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean spotted something that didn't make sense. Another ship sails up, moving, but with nobody steering her. They watched her for 2 hours before anyone worked up the nerve to climb aboard. And when they finally did, they found a ship in almost perfect condition, cargo untouched, beds slept in but not made, the small impression of a 2-year-old girl still pressed into one of the mattresses. Food and water for another 6 months still on board, but not one single person anywhere on that ship. 10 people, a captain, his wife, his little girl, and 7 crewmen had simply disappeared. No bodies were ever found, not one in 150 years. This story actually starts 11 years earlier, in 1861, in a small shipbuilding town on the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia, Canada. That's where a shipbuilder named Joshua Dewis built this vessel by hand, using axes and saws with no proper sawmill anywhere nearby. He named her the Amazon, and almost immediately bad luck seemed to follow her. On her very first voyage, her young captain came down with pneumonia before the ship had even left the bay. He was brought ashore and he died within days, a newlywed leaving behind a young widow. The first thing the Amazon ever delivered in her career was the body of her own captain, brought home to his wife. Over the next decade, the ship changed hands again and again. She collided with another vessel in the English Channel. She ran aground off Cape Breton in a storm, under circumstances investigators later called suspicious, almost like the captain had wrecked her on purpose. She was salvaged, sold, and eventually bought by an American businessman who gave her a brand new name. He called her the Mary Celeste. By 1872, after a complete expensive rebuild, she was a 282-ton brigantine, a 2-masted cargo ship about 30 meters long, and her new captain was a 37-year-old Massachusetts man named Benjamin Briggs. Briggs came from generations of sea captains. He was careful, deeply religious, and didn't drink. He picked his own crew for this voyage, 7 men he considered solid and dependable, and he made one decision that would change everything. He brought his wife, Sarah, and his 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, along with him. His older son, just 8 years old, stayed behind with his grandmother to finish school. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste left New York Harbor, loaded with over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, bound for Genoa, Italy. 8 days later, another ship called the Dei Gratia left New York too, heading the exact same direction on the exact same ocean. Neither crew had any idea what was waiting for them out there. Both ships ran into rough weather almost as soon as they left New York. The Mary Celeste pushed through it, and on the morning of November 25th, her crew sighted the Azores Islands. That was the last entry ever written in her log. December the 4th, 1872. 9 days later, the Dei Gratia is sailing near the Azores when her captain, David Morehouse, spots sails on the horizon about 5 miles off. Something is wrong with how that ship is moving. She's drifting, swinging side to side, not holding a steady line the way a properly crewed vessel would. Morehouse watches her for 2 full hours through his spyglass. No one on deck, no one at the wheel. He sends his first mate and 2 seamen to row over and take a look. They climb aboard and they find absolutely nobody there. Not one person anywhere on the ship. But here's what makes this case so strange. It's not a wreck. It's barely even damaged. A little water has gotten into the hold, about 3.5 feet of it, mostly rainwater from a skylight that had been left open. That's nowhere near enough to sink a ship this size. Down in the cabins, the beds are still soaked from that rain, and the captain's bed hasn't been made. Right there in the bedding, they can still see the small impression left by a 2-year-old girl. Sarah Briggs's belongings are still in her cabin, so is almost everything else. Food, water, personal items, all of it still on board, untouched. The only things missing are the ship's small boat, the captain's navigation instruments, and the ship's papers. Briggs had taken those with him on purpose. That tells investigators something important. Whatever happened here wasn't panic or chaos in a single terrifying instant. Briggs had time to think, time to gather what he needed, and then he made a deliberate choice to leave his own ship out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with his wife and his little girl and never come back. The question that's haunted historians for 150 years is simply this: why would a careful, experienced captain abandon a ship that wasn't actually sinking? Captain Morehouse decides to sail the Mary Celeste into Gibraltar himself, alongside his own ship, hoping for a salvage reward. It takes his small crew over a week of hard sailing to get her there safely, and the moment she arrives, the case lands on the desk of a British official named Frederick Solly Flood. Solly Flood becomes convinced almost instantly that this is murder. His theory: the crew got into the cargo, got drunk, killed Briggs and his family, and fled in the lifeboat. There's just one problem: the alcohol on board is industrial grade, completely unfit to drink and barely touched. Investigators search the entire ship for blood, for weapons, for any sign of a struggle, and find almost nothing. There is a sword tucked under the captain's bed, and for a moment it looks like the breakthrough everyone's been waiting for. But when it's tested, the discoloration on the blade turns out to be ordinary rust. Not a single drop of blood anywhere on that ship. Two brothers on the crew come under suspicion simply because none of their personal belongings are found on board. But it turns out they'd lost everything they owned in an earlier shipwreck months before. They climbed onto the Mary Celeste with nothing because they had nothing left. The hearings drag on for months. No charges are ever filed. No bodies are ever found. Not Briggs, not his wife, not his little girl. Not one single crew member, then or ever. And when the public doesn't get a real answer, it invents one instead. Newspapers blame pirates, mutiny, even sea monsters. Years later, a young, then unknown writer named Arthur Conan Doyle publishes a short story about the case. Pure fiction, calling the ship the Marie Celeste instead of her real name. Readers mistake it for a true account, and that one small misspelling sticks for generations, right alongside the legend itself. So what actually happened? The most widely accepted theory today doesn't involve a monster or a murderer. It comes down to the cargo. 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol packed tight in the hold, rocking and rubbing together for 2 straight weeks of rough storms. That friction plus the warmer water near the Azores can cause alcohol fumes to build up and seep out, even from barrels that aren't visibly leaking. Sailors on other ships carrying the same cargo reported the hull groaning under that pressure. Now picture Briggs, 2 weeks into a brutal crossing, hearing his own ship groan for no reason he can explain, with his wife and his 2-year-old daughter asleep below deck. On the morning of November 25th, the weather finally broke, the moment to open the hatches and vent those fumes out. But Briggs doesn't know if that hold is about to ignite. A grown man might just get a headache from the fumes. A toddler might not survive them, so he makes the call. Everyone into the small boat, just in case, tied to the Mary Celeste with around 300 feet of rope, planning to climb back aboard once the air cleared. They left in a hurry, not even finishing the sails, but not in a panic. Then the wind picked up again, hard enough to catch the empty ship's sails and send her surging forward on her own. The rope snapped. 10 people in a small open boat watched their own ship sail away from them into the rain. They never made it back. The Mary Celeste drifted on, empty and undamaged, for 9 more days before the Dei Gratia found her. almost 400 miles away. The ship herself sailed on for another 13 years, gaining a reputation as a cursed vessel until 1885, when her final captain deliberately wrecked her on a reef off Haiti for the insurance money. The scheme fell apart, and within 6 months, every man behind it was dead. The ship that carried 10 people into one of the greatest mysteries at sea ended her life broken open on a reef, alone, the same way she'd been found 150 years ago.